This episode was set entirely in the modern era, and this time it was May's turn to have the spotlight. I've really been liking this method of storytelling, but with only a few episodes left, it does feel like the series needs to start moving forward a little more, as it doesn't really even feel like there's a clear climax or confrontation that we've been working towards. The episode kicks off with a very short scene revealing that Tim is in fact alive, which I was really grateful for. I had completely gone along with the fact that he died in the helicopter crash from last episode, but after all this series has done to develop his character, I'm glad we get to see more of him. He gets to play quite a big role in this episode, as he soon runs into the three kids at the airport. I was really surprised with how quickly the siblings turned against their father after last episode. I guess as an audience we have a little more context about what happened than they do, but I would think that they would still be able to put together that he was only running away from them in order to protect them. It would still hurt, but not to the point where I expected Kentaro to be done with his father and just want to go back to his life in Tokyo. They've come so far to find him, and now after barely getting to him, not even really getting a full reunion, they're ready to give up. While they're at the airport, we see May calmly get kidnapped by two black suits, and her entire story felt very earned in this episode. Her character still isn't the reason I'm tuning in every Friday, but we've slowly gotten to learn more and more about her, where we've seen her undergo arguably the biggest character arc. We get a brief flashback to May's life 3 years ago when she still lived with her family in the United States. She's at a dinner meeting related to her coding talent, and this was the first tease at her larger, as of yet untold story. Initially, I had expected that her running away to Tokyo had more to do with her family problems than anything else, but we go on to learn in this episode that May made some career decisions that led to her hiding halfway around the world, but I'll get more into that later. After Kate and Kentaro discover May's absence, they run into Tim, who being the sole survivor of the helicopter crash is now all on his own. He's able to sit down with the siblings and talk to them a bit about Monarch and their family, and this is the Tim that I've looked forward to seeing. He never had the presence of a villain in the series, but here he's more comforting and helpful to the main characters, almost like an uncle in a sense. He tells them about their grandparents, about their father and his mission. It seemed like a big shift for the character at the time, but it's a shift in the right direction. With Shaw continuing to cause chaos, they make a deal where Tim will help them find May if they help Tim and Monarch find Shaw, which once again will lead to everyone coming back together again by the finale. It allows the characters to all grow on their own before coming together again, but it is kinda repetitive how this reunion has happened multiple times already. Tim gets a call from Verdugo at Monarch, and for how they kept talking about Godzilla, a name that startles everyone at the base, I'm surprised that there wasn't any commotion at the airport. Tim's able to stick up for himself here, wanting to help the kids rather than return to Monarch, and it's nice to see his rebellious side a bit, treating the kids like assets rather than criminals. Once that's all sorted out, there's a very nice moment where Tim proves that he knew their dad by talking about how good he was, the small details that few people would notice. It does just as much to flesh out Tim as it does their father, because it shows that he has stakes in finding the man, and that he cares just as much as anyone at Monarch. They may not have been best friends, but Tim at least knew of Hiroshi and wants to find him. Tim also tells Kate and Kentaro the truth about May, which is that her name is actually Korra, and she ran into a bit of a problem with AET, the reason we met her so far away from home in the series. They all go to her family home in Washington, and this scene was full of a lot of awkward lies. It's been 2 years since Korra was home, and while the mother looked confused but gullible enough, eating up their lies about anime, the sister knows something is up. It's very hard to make sense of the situation when the characters don't know how much the family knows either. Suspicious of what the sister knows, they follow her to a parking garage, where we see that she's really just scared and concerned for her sister. Thanks to some exposition from the sister, and another flashback to May, we learn that she got in trouble with AET because she caused the company system to crash. She hacked into the network, discovered that her code was being used on creatures, and destroyed it all. It all adds a much more personal element to finding May, because 1, it establishes AET as a bit of a threat rather than an unknown entity, and 2, we see the impact that her absence is having on her family. After calling in a few favors, including sending out a Muto warning to everyone's devices, Tim, Kate, and Kentaro are able to get inside of AET, but this is where we learn that AET is bigger than we know. I had suspicions early on, but this is where they force feed us the teases. While talking with May, Boss Lady is very unconcerned about the message, because they would have had an advanced warning, because they're in cahoots with Monarch. She also knows about Africa and what she described as an emergence event, which must just mean Godzilla being rediscovered there. After Verdugo gets the deal made later for May's freedom, which in turn turns the company into Apex Cybernetics, the company responsible for Mechagodzilla and King of Monsters, it really doesn't feel like it's that important for this series. It was a one-off tease at the connected universe they're trying to create between the movies and the series, nice for one episode, but it doesn't feel all that important down the line. But the big thing that this does is develop Mei's character. Although she's offered to leave freely, as long as she secretly reports hidden intel back to AET, she finally decides that she's done making others pay for her mistakes. She's done being that person, and at least for the time being, she was ready to suffer the consequences for her actions. She gives Kate and Kentaro the go home and eat shit that they wanted to their face, and then stays behind. But Kate is really good at negotiating deals, so when she's kidnapped by Verdugo and Monarch again, she makes her the same deal. Mei for Shaw. It gives Mei a happy reunion with her family, and I wouldn't have been surprised if this was a way to get her out of the story for the rest of the season, to narrow the focus more on the Randa family. But she returns at the end and still wants to help the siblings. With the weight off her shoulders, I look forward to seeing how the three of them work together going on, as well as the new romance between Mei and Kate that they've been teasing, which has to be awkward for Kentaro. The other big thing to end the episode is Verdugo taking Monarch public, after the convincing of Tim. We're starting to transition to the point where we see Monarch and King of Monsters, and with 3 episodes left, I hope this becomes a major influence on Monarch and their actions going forward. They're going to be held more accountable, and it seems likely that this will influence Shaw and his group of renegade warriors as well. He didn't do much in this episode, but with the way his scenes are going, it feels like he's taken a step up, almost like he's being painted as the bad guy now except that his methods are proven. He takes over a Monarch outpost in Alaska, takes the explosives from the base, and uses them to close the Alaska Rift we saw a few episodes ago. It all looked like it worked, but it feels anticlimactic for that to be it. They've been talking up the second coming of G-Day that everyone's trying to stop, Monarch, Hiroshi, Shaw, and it felt safe to assume that this was connected to the rift in Alaska. But if Shaw closed it up, what now? My guess is that it didn't work perfectly, that it had some unforeseen consequences, because I do feel like Godzilla still has a part to play in the final 3 episodes. What did you think of this Monarch episode? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to like the video, and subscribe for coverage of the Monsterverse, and remember to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Thank you all for watching, and remember, the Force will be with you. Always.